Frankie, I'm really looking forward to this one. I've been looking forward to getting your take on everything that's going on with West Ham in the last few days since that Leicester defeat. So we're going to discuss Lopetegui a little bit, how they've handled the Lopetegui situation, and also Graham Potter, because he seems to be the number one replacement for Lopetegui should we decide to sack him post Wolves. But first, I want to start with the Lopetegui. I keep calling it a situation because it has turned into one. It's turned into this a bit of a problem that the board are refusing to deal with, or maybe you think they have dealt with it. What's your take on everything that's going on in regards to him?
Just same old story, isn't it? Just indecisiveness, lack of clarity and planning. We're handling this situation how we always handle these types of situations, just without any real, I don't know, what's the correct word? Just it's not having the guts to do something. It's just normally people in business, people are ruthless and they're just very clear-minded on what they want and how things should be. But I think it's actually maybe showing a little bit that the dynamics have changed a little bit at the club, and that there are a lot of people involved now. It actually makes for a bit of a mess. We're normally a mess. This is making for a bigger mess because there's too many people at the top having to have a say, having to agree. Clear lack of direction. And I think it's just got very muddled. We've tried to do what, i.e. the new modern day football club should have with directors of football and with this, that and the other. And actually what we've ended up with is a real half-hearted version of it, with people who are not really given the full responsibility, aren't really given the final say-so. And we've got too many people all involved at once, and it's just made a bigger mess than what we normally seem to manage. So, yeah, it's not good.
For a little bit of context, what do you believe is the truth at the minute? Because we're all going to believe different things based on, as I always say, it depends on what you read and who you believe. So what do you believe to be the truth?
I just think sometimes you have to just look at things with just common sense. And it just points to the fact that we have got at the top more people involved than we've really had. And if you're going to make a big call, maybe all people do need to sit round and thrash that out. And when they're busy people and they've all got other things going on in life, to get everybody sitting around a table and all coming to an agreement isn't easy. And I think that's a bit of the problem. I think maybe if we didn't have so many people all involved and having to sign off on something, a decision would have been made before now. But I think there's just so many people involved with the club, and they probably haven't all been able to thrash it out yet. And that's the only thing that I can see. Because like we said, what difference does Monday night really make? It doesn't make a blind bit of difference at all what happens and what the result is of that football match. You either want him and you see that he is your man moving forward, or you have to get rid and make a change. But if there's people who need to sign off on that, it's a lot of people that need to be available at one time.
Yeah. At the moment, though, Sullivan can be overruled, which isn't something that was the case in the past. In the past, Sullivan was the majority shareholder in over 50%, but also David Gold would always side with David Sullivan anyway. So it was almost like, even if you had 20% of club, it's pointless having it. You've got a say, but you don't have a vote really. But now, if they wish to, Kutinsky and Gold's estate can go against David Sullivan. They can then become the majority. So Sullivan can now be outvoted for the first time. Well, since they bought the club, really, he's now got such a small share. But the problem is, I think the Gold estate will probably still side with David Sullivan. I'm not even sure how arsed Trip Smith is. He's got 8% of the club now. It was 10, got diluted. He's got 8%. I'm not even sure who even bothers to vote. And if he does, he probably says, oh, just whatever David Sullivan says, whatever the chairman says, I'll just go with him. Thank you. So it leaves sort of possibly Kutinsky on his own. And I would imagine he's perhaps influenced by Tim Steidten, given that Kutinsky was the one that employed Tim Steidten. So maybe in Kutinsky's eyes, that's his footballing man, his eyes and ears on the ground at West Ham. So you feed back to me, and I'm going to go off the back of that. But if he's the only one doing it, then it becomes a little bit, well, what's the point? And that's the thing with Tim Steidten and his role as technical director, and even Mark Noble as sporting director. They've both got a say, but neither of them have a vote. So they can sit there and say, I think this, and I think this should happen, and this is my advice. But ultimately, when it comes to what matters, it's just words. That's all they've got.
That's
They've
the
only got
key.
words.
What you've just said is what matters, right? And this is the point, isn't it? The way the world is with football now, it's actually a little bit frustrating. And none of us as fans should be bothered about what goes on in the day-to-day runnings of the football club. It's got nothing to do with any of us. And there'll be some people that will say Sullivan's got the power of veto. None of us really know how the dynamic works in that boardroom. None of us have got a clue. And we shouldn't really care. Ultimately, all that matters is that what the best decision for West Ham is, we get to that point. Doesn't matter how we get there. Just the best decision for West Ham, we've got to get to that place. And that is up to the club, the management, the owners, whatever it is, however we get there, that's what matters. It's really frustrating. The most frustrating thing for me is I don't care who's doing what and who's got a say and who's got a vote and who hasn't. All I care about is making the right decision for West Ham. And for whatever reason, we seem to not be able to get to that point, which is really annoying.
I kind of agree. I do care. But I understand what you're saying, which is all that matters ultimately is the end result being the right one for West Ham. It's about like, as an equivalent, we're like an analogy on Hamish Drive. If you go into a bakery and you pick up a nice cake, you don't go, who made this? And then I'm going to decide if I purchase it or not. Who was the one that was responsible? It looks good, tastes nice. I'm having that. I don't care what happened through the back. This is the product. I'm enjoying it. I'm having that. So I get what you're saying. As long as this gets resolved, it doesn't really matter how we get there. But I think the reason I care is because the method ain't right at the moment. I think it's crazy that we hire someone like Tim Steidten. And actually, forget Tim Steidten a second. It's crazy that we have a sporting director and a technical director, regardless of who they are. They're there because they are deemed experts in football. That's why they're there. They're there in that position because they're supposed to be the best there is in their jobs. Now, we can dispute whether they are or they're not, but they're in a powerful position at Premier League Football Club. But then they don't have a say in who's managing the team. I think it's crazy, Frankie, that we've possibly got someone responsible for buying players and assembling a squad, but doesn't get to choose who's in charge of the squad. And I think it's incredibly disjointed. And I think it's absolutely mental because I strongly believe that disjointed Tim Steidten's doing his thing and Sullivan's doing his thing. And it's what's led us to be in the position we are now, where, as I keep saying, I think Tim Steidten has signed players for a different head coach, not Lopetegui, because I don't think how Lopetegui plays, not all the players we've signed fits what he does. And I think that's why it's crazy. And I think we're going to end up in a similar situation again, because if we decide to sack Lopetegui and get someone else in, we're still going to be assembling a squad with one hand, but recruiting a manager with the other hand. And I think it's just absolutely bonkers that we're in this situation, really. I think either Sullivan needs to leave it to other people, or he's in charge, but then get rid of Tim Steidten and let the guy that you bring and go back to what you had with Moyes, which is the manager decides which players you bring in. So at least he's got the players he wants. Because at the minute, we're in a halfway house where we've got the players that the head coach doesn't really want, and we've got a head coach, the guy buying the players doesn't really want. So what's the point? It's never going to work. It's absolutely mental. You either back Steidten or you bin them off and you back the manager, as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like we're doing half and half. And I think that's the worst thing. I think that's the worst thing you can do. But
no, I agree with you. But again, it's, whose fault is it that Steidten's gone in there and is happy to allow these things? Maybe Steidten, you don't, and again, we don't know. Steidten might have gone into that boardroom. Yeah, but Steidten might have gone into that boardroom with the list of managers. Sullivan might have been really pushing for Lopetegui. Sullivan might have, you know what I mean. So Sullivan's pushing for Lopetegui. Steidten's there. He might have turned around and gone, well, I don't think that's right. Maybe this one's better. But in the end, Steidten might have just turned around and gone, do you know what? It's a battle that I don't really want to have. I'm not going to win. I'm just going to agree. And if he does that and he concedes and he just agrees, then there's as much responsibility on Steidten's head for being that weak person and allowing it to happen and not, backing what you believe. But alternatively, Steidten might have really pushed against it, and Sullivan might have overruled it and said, no, this is the man that I'm going with, end of. But that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
We will never know. And I know we all like to discuss it, and we do, and that's the whole point of being here, to try and, you know, unpick these things. But you can drive yourself mad in the end. But what you're saying is bang on, that at the end of the day, it's very clear that whatever we're doing isn't working, and actually it seems the most disjointed it's ever been. We've always seemed a bit disjointed. And we always, even when Moyes, you say Moyes used to pick the players, we can go back. Let's go back to the video. There were plenty of times that people were saying, well, that was a Sullivan pick and that was a Moyes pick. And then Sullivan comes out and says, that's my man. And Moyes comes out and says, all of it is just a nightmare. Ultimately, what you got to have, it don't matter who's where, you've got to have everyone pulling in the same direction with the same vision and the same belief of the right way to go about things. And if you haven't got everybody on board and all believing in the way forward, even if there's the slight element of doubt, and that's the problem. And as a manager, as an owner of whatever it is, you don't want your staff questioning your decisions. If they believe in you as an owner, as the person who's steering the ship, everyone should believe in what you're trying to achieve and all be on board and giving it their all. The second that you've got that thing where people are questioning bits, and at the moment we've gone from Sullivan there, the people below him not believing in what his decisions are, but it's filtered now all the way down to the playing staff. And now we've got the players falling out with the people above them, and it just becomes this toxic environment that's just an absolute mess. And that's where we are.
You're right, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Anyway, we're going to discuss Graham Potter because he's widely reported to be the #1 target to come in and replace Lopetegui. Before we do, this video is sponsored by somebody brand new. This is the first video that we're promoting it, and it's the Santa Company. Now, I need to word this one very carefully because there'll be people watching with kids right now. However, if you would like to get your child a letter from Father Christmas ahead of the big day, then please do go to the Santa Company. The link is in the description below. It's the santaco.co.uk. And it'll cost £10, but that's before you use the discount code. If you use the discount code, which is Hammers Chat, all one word, you will get 30% off. So we'll arrive in a nice red envelope, and then inside it there's a letter which is personalized through AI for your child. It's not one of these copy and paste templates where you put your kid's name in and they just slap your name in there and every child gets the same letter. It's not that. It's personalized to your child. You go on there and you have a little discussion with Father Christmas and say what your child would like for Christmas, etc. Answer a few questions. The letter will get sent out from Father Christmas for your child. There's also a nice list certificate in there as well. And plus there's a QR code so you can scan it and you will hear Father Christmas's voice. The link's in the description below. So use the code Hammers Chat and you will save 30% off. And if you're a patron, log into Patreon because you get 50% off. The code is on Patreon. So it will come down to under a £5 for a letter for your kid, for your niece or your nephew, your cousin, anyone that would appreciate a letter from Father Christmas. Frankie, would you like a letter from Father Christmas?
I'd like to arrange P45s for club owners and managers. If they can do that, I'll sign up right now. I'm in. I'm on board.
Which is a new manager on your Christmas list this year?
It certainly is. Big changes. The big man needs to come up trumps.
Are you hoping Father Christmas brings you Graham Potter, though?
I've got to be honest. I don't think I am. I wasn't that opposed to it, actually, because of what he's done before. And Chelsea was not a reflection on him, I don't think. I think the Chelsea scenario is very unfair to judge him on that. But it was just his interview the other night. They've stuck him on there clearly because of the links with West Ham. There's no other reason for him to be there, to be quite honest, other than the fact that he's linked with us. So they've put him on there. And all it did was completely turn me off the idea. My God, is the man boring, dull. Like, I just couldn't get into what he was saying. I didn't buy into anything that he said. Just a really boring summary and analysis of what we were watching. And really, I'll tell you why he might be a good fit. Because he was so diplomatic. He didn't want to say anything negative, really. He didn't want to say the harsh realities. He didn't want to come out with the facts. He really just watered everything down. And maybe that's a complete perfect mouthpiece for Mr. Sullivan, as he likes to manipulate what they say at times. And he was clearly a man who's happy to sit on the fence and water things down so it doesn't all seem doom and gloom. But yeah, he just bored me to tears, to be honest.
In regards to the latest of what's going on with Graham Potter, there was some rumours earlier on in the week prior to the news that Lopetegui was getting the Wolves game that we had approached him and offered him a short-term contract, which he'd rejected. However, this is rumoured to not be true. So the latest reports are, which I believe, are that we are in discussions with Graham Potter and his agents. We haven't offered him a short-term contract, so he's not rejected us yet, and he is keen on potentially taking over at West Ham. He is also keen, less or so, but he's also keen on taking over at Wolves from Gary O'Neill, apparently. So this Monday night could be a big game for Graham Potter, because he could be looking at both clubs here. But in regards to West Ham, it looks like if we do dismiss Lopetegui, Graham Potter will be the number one target. I'm 50-50 with it, Frankie. I think my perspective on managers has changed completely in the last couple of months. So in the summer, if you'd said to me Graham Potter, I'd have said, no, thank you. I don't want Graham Potter. But now, if it's Lopetegui or Potter, because it shouldn't be the choice, but I think it will be the choice, I'd probably say change it, please, because I don't like what we've got. He was very, funny enough, that Leicester game, I think our performance against Leicester was a very Graham Potter performance, which he did at Brighton. They were sort of like the XG champions, weren't they? It was like if they converted all their chances, they'd be in European football. And they kept on drawing games, having good chances, but not scoring goals and whatever. And it becomes difficult to evaluate, really. I'm still not convinced he's a good manager, but I'm certainly not convinced he's a bad manager either. I think he's possibly a very bang average manager in the Premier League. And in the summer, I think we could have done a lot better than that. But now, all things considered, and listen, if I came up with 10 managers I'd like, he wouldn't be on the 10, right? Let me make that clear. But if I had to come up with 10 freebie managers I'd like, which is this pool of people we will be in for, he'd maybe be on there. It'd be towards the bottom than the top. And I think we've got to twist. I do, because even if we beat Wolves, am I suddenly going to be confident? No, I'm not. I don't think it solves anything. I think we've got to the point where we've decided he's not good enough, and we're now at the point of, well, who can we get instead? Monday night ain't going to change that. The only thing it might do is if we get beat, it just speeds up the inevitable, and that is it. And I think, do you think Potter will be the man?
I think it seems quite likely. I think he ticks a lot of boxes.
Potter or Lopetegui, that's your choice. Which one would you?
Yeah, Potter. Yeah.
You
as much as he's dull and boring, at least you can understand what he's saying.
I better say, charisma aside, his lack of charisma to one side, in regards to the footballing aspect of him as a manager, do you have a strong opinion of him, or?
Not really. If I'm honest, I don't remember a lot of his Brighton days.
It was the old 3-5-2, weren't it? It was like a 3-4-3. He had his three centre backs, and he had his two wing backs, centre midfielders, and he sort of had two number 10s as well as a striker. And there was a lot of talent there, which he developed. It wasn't, he didn't sign them, but he developed them. And some of them now play for big clubs. They had Cucurella there, he had Caicedo there, Alexis McAllister, Pascal Gross. He helped Solly March look like an unbelievable Premier League player, just regardless of which position he played in. Lewis Dunk. There was a lot of good players that played under him at that club, and he was, partly responsible for their development. So I'd have to go back and refresh my memory completely of him at Brighton, but I do recall him playing that 3-4-3 formation, which I'd suggest we perhaps can't play because we're lacking centre backs. We've only got 3. So I think we would need to change that a little bit. And I think, I suspected Souček would be done under Lopetegui. It turns out that's not the case. I really do think he'd be done under Potter too, because he is very possession, pass. So is he the right fit for what the players we've got? I think some of them would. I think Kudus and Bowen would perform well and enjoy playing under him. But I do think there's a few players that would struggle. But also, I just think like even like Wan-Bissaka, I think, well, where is he going to play? Is he going to play wing back, or is he going to try and convert him to centre back? What's he going to do with that? So I'm not convinced the squad's completely to Potter's liking. But I don't think there is a manager you could go get now that is like comes and goes, wow, this is perfect. It's got every player I want. I can work miracles with this. He doesn't need to. He just needs to do better than what Lopetegui is currently doing. And to sum it up, his mouthpiece, that Spanish journalist, I can't pronounce his name. What's his name? Guillermo Balagi or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Did a tweet about after the Leicester game. And he basically said, "Oh, you got to give him time because he just needs to improve the defense, improve the midfield, and improve the attack." He didn't word it like that. It was basically he needs to improve everything. But he said at the end of last season, only won 4 games in 19. Lopetegui's done it in 16. What 4 games is you're bragging about the fact we won 4 in 16? Yeah, it's an improvement at the end of last season. But that the manager was on his way out and he knew it, and the players knew it. Everybody had down tools at this point. Plus, with a European campaign going on, we were focusing on that. We don't have any of that this season, so. It just tickled me a little bit. All Potter would have to do is improve on what we've got at the minute. And you don't even need to be a good manager. An average manager will be able to achieve that pretty quickly. So there you go.
I think the big part of question, mate, is will our biggest players respect him as a manager? And that's one of my biggest concerns. I think if you want to start going for players like Kudus, you want players, like Paqueta and that, they've got to believe, basically, you need a manager who turns around and they can't question because they've been there and seen it and done it. And I think that's been Man United's biggest unfolding with the managers they've been picking is they've basically had school teachers as managers, people who can influence youngsters and have worked really well with youngsters, but have never really done anything at the top level as a player or as a manager. And I do think there's a lot to be said. And this ain't the case for every scenario, but I think it massively helps when you've got big egos and players that think they are elite level. You've got to have a manager who they look up to. And if they question, the manager can say, listen, I've been there and done it. I've won this. I've won that as a player, or I've won this and won that as a manager. I've done this and I've done that. And I'm not sure Potter's got that. And I don't think Potter inspires our best players at our football club. And I think that's one of my biggest issues.
Yeah, but when you were saying that, I was trying to think of him at Chelsea, and I struggle with time in my head. Well, if you said to me, the 2022 season Chelsea, I couldn't tell you what happened, right? I need examples in order to... So I'm struggling in my brain to recognise which era was Potter and which one was Pochettino. However, the one thing Maresca has impressed me with is how ruthless he's been. He's gone into Chelsea and gone, Ben Chilwell, get him out. I ain't going to play him. And he's not playing. He's gone in there and said, get Raheem Sterling, get him out. I ain't having him. I'm not having him here. Get him out of the club. And they did to send him off to Arsenal. And I feel like pre-Maresca, that was an issue for Chelsea, that there was too many players there. And it wasn't really like... the squad was too big, and the problem with that Chelsea squad was everybody was a good player. Like their bench players, they were leaving out top players every week. Some week match days we didn't even have Raheem Sterling on the bench. That's a huge profile of a player to leave out, and I think that was part of Chelsea's problem pre-Maresca. But definitely Pochettino. But was it Potter as well? I think it might have been. So is it? I don't want to say too nice, but we've got a problem at the minute regarding Lopetegui and players. The last thing you want to do is have a different one, which is that he just doesn't have that authority. So anyway, Wolves tomorrow night. What you feeling ahead of the game? And can I get a score prediction, please, Frankie?
Do you know what? I don't like how some of the noise we've made on our social media channels, and I said it to you with Leicester. I said, you know what? I think we were really too dismissive of Leicester, and we don't normally behave like that as fans. We're not the type of fans who, just write teams off, and we love it when teams do it to us and we turn them over. And actually, I think we're doing exactly the same with Wolves. I think there's too many people saying, oh, well, you know, you give Lopetegui that one. Well, he's obviously going to win that one, isn't he? No, it isn't that obvious. And as much as Wolves are struggling and they're in a bad place, so are we. And I think they've got some very, very good footballers. And if we're not at it, we don't win that game. It isn't a foregone conclusion. It isn't like it's just you turn up and you win. And we've got to get out of that habit as fans. We've got to get out of that habit as a team. And I know there's all this situation at the moment with, you know, suggestions of boycotts and all. Again, that's not West Ham. We ain't that. We've always, in that worst hour, been the team that turn up and get behind them and back West Ham. We've been through a lot darker times than we're going through right now, but we were all still there. And we all still back West Ham, and we back them till the end. I don't like it. I don't want it. And I'll be going over there Monday night, and I'll be giving it everything that I've got as a West Ham fan. And the club are going to make the decision however they make the decision. Don't think just because Lopetegui loses on Monday night, whether he wins or loses. And all this thing of the 2 games, this, that, and the other, the board will sack him when they're ready to sack him. There's not really a lot we can do about that. If you want to go round and make noise afterwards or do the protests like we've done before and walk from Pudding Mill Lane and all that, I'm up for all of that. But I'm never up for turning our back on West Ham as a team. And I think we all need to do our bit and just show that we are claret and blue through and through, West Ham till I die, keep the faith. And that's what I want us to all do on Monday night. So let's go and get behind them.
Yeah, the boycott's not for me. I understand why people are angry and stuff, but A, I don't think it'll make a difference. And B, what saddens me is I've seen more people up for a protest about Lopetegui as manager than I did for the club removing concession tickets. Yeah. That upset me a little bit, actually. I would protest against that any day, all day, any day, but not because I don't agree with the manager. I don't think it shouldn't be up to the fans. I think listen to the fans when it comes to match day experience and stuff like that. But when it comes to hiring the manager or buying players, I don't think you should be listening to the fans. You should be listening to the experts in football who you employ. And that's why they're there. Listen to them. So boycotting a game, and listen, it's a bit. I don't feel like I'm in a position to say anything because I'm not going to the game. However, it's not for me boycotting it. I think at the end of the day, the team are doing crap at the minute, and I think they need as much support as they can get. And I don't think Sullivan's arsed if people don't turn up or not because they've got the money anyway. They've already paid them. Season ticket holders, if you don't go, that's okay. That's up to you. But Sullivan's already got your money. You're not benefiting from it. It's not like he's losing out on money. And the match day experience money means nothing to West Ham because they don't get that much from catering and whatever because that's not our staff. That's North. Delaware, I don't know.
Delaware North.
That's it. Delaware North. They're the caterers. They earn the money. West Ham gets a small portion. It's not much. And also that means everybody would have to go and buy food. Nobody does. So whether people turn up or not, I don't think Sullivan cares. You can't. I think I see a lot of people saying Sullivan doesn't care and suggesting saying, well, let's boycott the game. Well, you can't have both. If you boycott the game, there's no point doing that if you believe he doesn't care. I don't believe Sullivan cares. So I think boycotting, to me, would make no difference whatsoever. Now, if you believe Sullivan cares, then boycotting may make a difference to you. But for a boycott to work, I think you have to believe that Sullivan actually cares.
Do you know what you've got to do as well, though, mate? For a boycott to work, you have to continue it until change is made. So if you're going to do it for this one, you've got to do it for the next one and the next one and the next one, and it won't sustain.
Also, if the stadium's half empty, West Ham will turn around and say, well, of course it's half empty. Did you not see the storm over the weekend?
Monday night, yeah.
Christmas is coming up.
This is it.
There's 100 reasons as to why that stadium will be half empty.
And the thing is, what they'll do, they'll give tickets away because they've got that part that they've got to give them away. They'll go to Newham Council. They'll give them away that way. There's 1,000,001 ways that they can counter that.
It won't make a difference whatsoever, I don't think. If people want to do it and it makes people feel like they're doing something, they're trying to create change, and do what you want. That's why I'll always say, do what you want. Don't do don't not boycott because me and Frankie's saying we wouldn't do it, but also don't boycott because someone else is saying they'll do it. Don't listen. Make up your own mind and do what you want.
And as a West Ham fan, you're entitled to do what you want to do as a supporter. That's what you pay your money for. Everyone can do it how they want to do it. And I wouldn't judge anyone for wanting to boycott it. My way of dealing with it is getting in there and being behind the team. But if someone else wants to turn their back on it, that is up to them. I would never, say that there's a right or wrong way of being a supporter and just like showing you.
When you buy a ticket, you want to leave 10 minutes early, you leave 10 minutes early. It's completely up to you. I've only ever left early once. But I've got a friend that goes every game and leaves 10 minutes early every single game, even if it's 1-1, even if it's a big game and we're winning, he still leaves on the 80th minute every single game because that 10 minutes makes an hour and a half difference to him at the other end. So if he leaves 10 minutes early, gets home at whatever time, he stays till full time, he gets home an hour and a half later than he would do. So for him, it's worth missing 10 minutes to get home an hour and a half early. It's his ticket. He can do what he wants. Just like everyone watch this. If you've got a ticket, you decide. You want to go, go. You don't want to go, don't go. You want to go and leave 10 minutes early, leave 10 minutes early. It's your ticket. Make your own mind up. Anyway, shall we leave there, Frankie?
Let's leave it there, mate.
There you go. Thank you very much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please do drop a like on it, back a thumbs up, subscribe to your Hammers Chat. And if you fancy getting your little one a Christmas letter from Father Christmas, the link's in the description below. But make sure you use the code Hammers Chat and save yourself 30%. Catch you in a bit.